Okay, let's do this. I'm close enough. So this is a figure I usually start my bioeconomic modeling class to mostly biology students. And I say that if you take the fishery, if you want to model the fishery, there are two components, right? You have nature, the natural part, and the human part, you know. And this is what you heard this again. It's a team. You manage the ocean, you manage fisheries. Actually, managing fisheries is managing people.
This one I got for you, madam.
That's the one. Yeah. So this comes from here, but I usually have fun with my biology class people. I say the only reason we have issues with fisheries, for example, is because people, we go to nature. We go to nature and cause trouble for nature. You know? So actually what we really need are not biologists. We don't need biologists. What we need are social scientists. And then they go crazy, they go crazy. They want to drive me out of the room and I say, okay, I'm sorry. We need you. But we need you only for data. They get angry, right? But this kind of tells you that the human side is quite important. Yeah. And so some of the classical management problems of fisheries, as you all know, is we have overfishing because we have overcapacity normally. And this leads to low or negative profits. I'm using profit here as an indicator of the benefit or the utility you get. You can actually put anything there, the thing you value. All right, and I'm quite open to that. You see them in my models. Sometimes I look at employment, sometimes it depends. So take that profit. I know profit is like a dirty word, you know. You can change it into anything you want. But these are classic problems that we see in fisheries around the world. And bioeconomists are very proud to say that actually our models predict this. Nobody in fisheries is surprised that we do these things. And you saw a bit of that yesterday when Ingrid made you play a game, right? The best thing would have been everybody give up your valuable cards and then there will be a big pool and we'll all be. But what did others do? They kept their money. They want to share with everybody. So that is what drives this kind of behavior when it comes to common open access, common property stuff. I've put a number of citations there. Some of them are classic, some of them are just examples of what I'm talking. Colin Clark is a classic mathematical bioeconomist. I wanted to check his citation before talking. I didn't get to do, but I think he's close to 10,000. One book, I mean, or 5,000, somewhere there. But it is like a Bible for those of us in this business. So you can check the book out if you don't already know about it. Now, this tendency of overdoing things is actually individually rational, right? You want to better, you want to do things to improve your situation, your interest, what you care about. And if everybody does that, that is where you end up. So you all want to catch the fish because it's not yours until you catch it. But by doing that, if enough of us, and some may never do this, remember the 10% from the Boston area. But if a critical mass of people do this, this is where you end up. Right? And you have no say where you end up, is what the majority of the people do. So we call these undesirable outcomes. And then because people are individually irrational. I know this is controversial also. And they don't also cooperate. You can be individually rational. But if you work together, you can get to a better place. But if you don't work together, that is when the issues come. All right. Gordon Monroe is one of the, I think he's the first economist who applied game theory to fisheries in his 1979 paper. Gordon is 83 years and we still teach a course together at TVC. So that's the staying power of some of this. All right, issues in fisheries economics. In general, fisheries economists look at fish as natural capital. And I add in a broad sense. So it's not just capital, just to turn it into money. Some of us want to employ people with it. Some of us actually just love to keep the fish in the water. You don't want to eat whales, right? So but you want them to be there. So in a sense, it's a broad view of capital. And fish are common property resources. No matter how much you try, fisheries economists have tried to split the thing through quotas, ITQs. The main underlying factor is fish are shared stocks. I like to say that they don't respect national borders and they don't need visa. They don't need visa to go. I was in Britain, I said Brexit, England can go, English fish will go and the rest of Europe fish will move, you know. They don't care, right? Talk about Mexican fish. They don't even respect your war, actually, they just go. So it's very important. And this leads to something economists call externalities, and a very important concept. What is an externality? Can somebody tell us? You know this concept? Somebody, let's talk. I like interactive classes. An externality, what is that?
Negative.
Who? Two voices and then zero voice. How come? Once you talk, at least.
The negative impact of your actions to others.
Other people, yes. So you take an action, and he says negative. Actually, it doesn't have to be negative all the time. Is that you are doing your thing. Imagine that you have a nice flower bed outside your house with beautiful flowers. You did it for yourself because you love flowers, you like gardening. And I'm passing by and I see this beautiful bed and I feel good about it. That is an externality. You didn't do it for me and I'm not paying for it. You didn't think of me, you just made it for yourself, that it has this positive effect on people passing by. Now, if you do things that give people positive externality, nobody complains. So that's a good thing, nobody. But if you do things that affects people negatively, you have a negative externality, then people will knock on your door, really. It's like smoking, and imagine somebody smoking in this room around. What is this, right? So that's the thing. And with a common property resource, if I catch the fish, you don't have it to catch. So I impact you and it affects what fish we get in the future. And this led some economists to argue for privatizing the property, which is also crazy in some ways, as you said, concentration and so on. But in general, what that means is that we need some form of regulation. We can't just let us all do what we want. We will take the damn thing to hell. So you need some regulation, right? So, and that leads to, because the whole thing is dynamic, decision making over time is very crucial in these models. Because what you do today will affect what happens tomorrow, everything taken into account. So today and tomorrow are linked, and they're linked by time. Yes, please.
With externalities, is it also,
Yes.
maybe you did say this, important to think about the fact that the externality is not accounted for in the cost of the production?
And that's the key thing.
Yeah.
So the key thing is that you do not take into account the cost to other people when you do your stuff. In fact, that's where the real problem is. Because if you internalize it, if you were thinking of everybody, then it won't be a problem. So thanks for highlighting that.
Is it the same as the unintentional?
Unintended consequences. That's
Is it
a
the same
good one.
thing?
Yeah, in a way it is. I mean, yeah. Unintended consequences. But this unintended consequence is almost like an accident. Something you don't think about.
But this is too.
Oh, but this one you know. You just don't care. Think about somebody in the night. Whilst you are sleeping, he comes and puts his rubbish by your door. Right? Because it's costly for me to take it to the dump. I just quietly, that is an externality. Yeah. But if I design a model because I wasn't careful or I don't know, I don't understand, unintended consequence, right? Help me, Ingrid. I'm trying to differentiate the two. Okay. They're close.
With your flower garden thing,
Yeah.
sounded like an unintentional consequence.
It is, in that case, it is unintentional. Yeah. The positive ones in particular,
Yeah.
Because that one, it happens. But sometimes you know that your garden will be enjoyed by people. You just say, okay, this is also fine, right? I taught a course in the media and I used another example. I don't dare to use it. Yes. This one you have seen already. It's a very static, simple model, and I told you biology is simple, economics is even simpler. Giving birth lecture, you know, biology is not simple, you know. When you get into the weeds, it can be really complicated. Economics too, right? So, but this really is a clean way of thinking about the system where I'm modeling. So, to do bioeconomic modeling, you really need to know what your objectives are, the objectives of the fisheries management. And when you look at the literature in general, there is a social. Some want these fisheries to serve some social purpose, cultural. There is the ecological. You don't want to destroy the resources for you in the future and for future generations. And of course, you don't want to blow your money fishing foolishly, right? So you need the economics to also work. So the question is, how do you weigh this? And this is difficult. And some just care about the money. Most people in fisheries economists maximize the rent. It is the money. And some will say you just maximize the fitness of the ecosystem. Conservationists will say no fishing, the extreme ones. Just we want the system to be intact. And some social scientists will tell we just want to employ as many people as possible. The fish can go to hell. You know? So, but in general, it's a mix of this, and you need to build that in your modeling somehow. In Canada, actually, the first requirement is you manage for conservation and long-term sustainability. That is number one. Number two, you actually manage to ensure that Canada's indigenous people have fish they need for their food and ceremonial services. So that's a big social thing. Eh?
That's number 2 in Canada?
Oh yeah, it's number 2. So ecology, and that comes first. Then the rest is commercial. So as countries do different things. In Australia, actually, maybe because of your work, yes, they actually, as far as I know, correct me, economists, Australia is the only country that says they maximize for economic rent. Am I right? I thought I read that somewhere. Yeah. New Zealand is not stated as far as I know, right? Iceland does, but I think MEY is actually a principle.
Yeah, because it's more biologically conservative as well, which is a major motivation in Australia.
Oh yeah, it is.
Higher than these sort of.
Exactly, but once you deal with the ecology, then you maximize the rent. I think that's, yeah, right? Okay, yes. Okay, so that's, now, economic efficiency, that's what we're talking about. Most fisheries economists actually go for the money. I mean, we have to, that's, you look at most of the models, maximize rent, the gap between the cost and the revenue. And I actually, some places I say this. I was in Mombasa and they're telling me, oh, we want to fish for all sorts of things. I say, you know what? As far as I know, people are starving in Mombasa. It's not because there's no fish, it's because they don't have money to buy the fish. So in Mombasa, if you ask me, I'll say, hey guys, improve your economics. Yes, I'll tell you that because really, but if you're in Canada where you are a little bit, when you have a belly like mine, I'll say, hey, think about First Nations first. So this can vary actually, over time also for a common place. Yeah. This is our classic model. If you remember this 5 years from now, when I meet you anywhere, and you can explain this, then I'm happy. Because it's the workhorse of the profession actually. A lot of the models are based on this. This is a Gordon Schaefer model. It just very easily turn a biology model into an economics model. And the biology is what dictates the shape of that curve. So when you have no fish in the water, you have no fish. If you start with zero biomass, what happens? Will you have fish next year? No. So I like to joke, you know the resilience people, they are my friends, but I tell them, the most resilient biomass you can ever get is zero. You want to drive me out of the room, right? But then nothing happens. Life is forever at zero. But as soon as you have some fish, and then they can grow the fish, and you go up, you get to the top as usual, people and living things. You never grow forever, no. agriculture, everybody says it's growing, it's going to grow forever. It won't grow forever. Nothing grows forever. You hit some limits and constraints. So then you start coming down until you have the carrying capacity. This is turned into economics just by multiplying your potential yield, sustainable catch by price, and then you turn that into revenue. And then you have a very simple cost curve, total cost curve. It's a linear one, easy. Some people spend all their time trying to estimate the real cost curve of a fishery. Like Frank Ashe and Co, they do a lot of that. But for illustrative purpose, this works. And there are 3 key points to keep in mind here. You have the first one here. So you have, So you have this point 1 here. That's what those who maximize for money, that's the amount of fishing effort you would like to take out. Because this is the total cost of that last effort, and this is the gap. This is the revenue you get. So you want this gap to be as much as possible. If you identify that, then you are economically optimal. You are the maximum, maximum economic rent. And then here, most biologists will say, or food security, people who are concerned about food security, you should be here because you maximize your fish. You get the highest amount of fish here. So if you want more fish for the people, actually, that's where you would want to be, right? Then I have many social scientists who tell me, we want to be here because we employ more people. And you can argue that. I have no problem with that. If that's what you decide, they'll watch it. Because at that point, the effort is high. It can actually be too much for your patient. You can collapse. So I do not pick this things in general, and that is what I think therefore is also saying. It can be determined by people. Society will decide what they really want. Just watch out about it. In fact, you can get another situation with subsidies, where if you give subsidies, this cost curve drops down, and you can actually come with too much effort and destroy your fish stock. That's why some of us say there are some subsidies you don't want to give fishing sector because it undermines the resource. Give them the money, let them go on holidays. I'm happy with that. I keep the money in the community, but don't use public money to kill the base of the resource. Can I say that as a scientist? Given our discussion yesterday in debate. Is that okay to say? You do research, you find...
Evidence-based?
Huh?
Is it evidence-based?
Yeah. That's my evidence. That's the theory, right? And there's more and more empirical data supporting this. And we see it in real life. When fuel prices were going high, you saw the demonstration in Belgium, Brussels. Fishers went painting the windows of ministers. They quickly gave them free money. Malaysia, they tied boats and they demonstrated. The government gave them money. The next day they went fishing because it's too, otherwise you tie your boat. So there is a lot of evidence. And therefore I can say that, right? Thank you. Yes. All right, so all that is static. So this is a general dynamic form of this. Like I said, time is important. So what we usually do is to calculate the net present value, NPV's net present value of your take of fish through time. And this thing here sitting innocently is called the discount factor. The way I put it is a discount factor. And this is the formula for the D. So here you have the discount rate. And in economics, that's what links today and tomorrow, right? Because $1 to you today is more valuable than $1 to you tomorrow or in 10 years' time. So you cannot just add the dollars without discounting. And there's a lot, this is so strong in my view. And I'll get to it later when we talk about indicators. So this is a typical model, and underlying this is a biological constraint, of course. You cannot take fish when there's no fish in the water. Sometimes you have a threshold that you cannot go under. You have to build this under your model. And I have this paper that if you really want a real example, we don't have time to do that. You can actually see the application of this. Yeah. This is from my PhD thesis, a number of them. When I was really sitting down doing modeling, right? Now I call it travel. No, I still do a bit of modeling. Yeah. So here, if you look at this figure, if your objective is to have most money, the tendency is very difficult to stay there. Mainly because once there's money to be made, more people will want to fish. It's almost natural, right? You can argue about that really. Some of us will fish when there's money. So that is a very unstable equilibrium. To keep this here, you need a lot of effort. You need management, regulation. That's why all of us are in this business. Here too is quite a tough equilibrium to stay. Because there's still money to be made, so more will come. When you get here, if you are thinking economically, you will not fish ahead of this because you will lose the money. See, if you fish up to here, you get this, that's your revenue, and you have to pay that together. No rational economic agent will do this. If you are irrational, I don't know what to do, how to handle you, right? I'm joking here, you know. So except if you have subsidies where government is paying this guy, then you fish more. Okay. So both of these, this is a very stable equilibrium because you don't want to do this. You do less than this because you lose money. And if you are here, you move here, right? Because there's money to be made. It's only this is stable. And this is generally not good. No money for people. The benefits are gone mostly, and the resources in trouble. So therefore, you need regulation. And so the question is, how do you get the system to work? And there's no time to go through this. I'll just drop them. We've mentioned them here and there. There are all sorts of ways that people have proposed to deal with the problem. Total allowable catches. And this is almost historical also. When we discovered the problem, people say, oh, the way to do it is just to decide how much you can take. Once you put that ceiling, they take that, you stop the fishery, everything will be fine. It turns out it's not, right? You still overfish. The security becomes you compete for the fish and injure each other. So they introduce more things as we go. So there's always innovation. We're always trying to beat the overfishing problem, which is not easy. All right, so that is, I think that is the first part of this thing. You get the basic model, you get some rationale and how to fix the problem, and there are tons of papers in the literature dealing with this if you don't already know them. What is an MPA? Who doesn't know what is an MPA here? You don't know? Ah, okay, that's good. I love that actually. Marine protected areas. This is where you
No, I know what marine protected.
yeah, but the MPA, the acronyms, yeah. TAC, total allowable catch, yeah. So, excellent. So you can use taxes and subsidies also, right? Yeah. All right, so I said biological models are simple. Beth has given us a lot. Here, my goal is just to give you a list of the models that economists use a lot in this business. The single species model is the workhorse of the profession still. I haven't counted, but I believe at least 80% of our modeling exercise does single species at the moment in fisheries economics, which is crazy, right? Given all that we know with ecology and so on. And in there are different types. You can have a lump parameter or age structure. Then you have multi-species models. Again, can be lump parameter, age structure. When I say lump parameter, what do I mean? The craziest lump parameter model, bioeconomic model, is by the World Bank actually. In that model, the sunken billion, I don't know whether you've heard about it, they have one big fish globally. The whole fishery of the world is reduced to one big fish. That's really lump sum. Yeah. So a lump parameter, right? But then you have a structure where some fish grow and you can do that. Then ecosystem models, e.g. EcoPath, Ecosystem Atlantis, of course. So I will just quickly show you equations of this. That's a single species model. Almost everybody has seen this before. Yeah, so you have what determines the future of your stock X, right? Is R, which is your intrinsic growth rate. Are you a tuna or a sardine anchovy, right? That determines how fast you grow. and they have carrying capacity, and this is a very simple illustration of the biological system. And again, these are used as widely applied in fisheries economics. And age-structured models. This is a figure. You know, we say in economics, and I think it applies in all of science. A good scientist should be able to combine words, figures, and equations in a beautiful way. Huh? It's poetry, okay, my dear friend. All right. Science is poetry. You have to tell your story in a beautiful way with words, figures, and equations. So this one quickly tells you, if you don't like equations very much, you can actually see what is happening. You start off in year 1 with this amount of fish. You have 1,000 fish in your water. By the end of that year, what happens? You catch some of them die naturally, some survive, and that feeds into the next year. Huh? So you start off with this amount. You do the same process. And then by year 10, that cohort is almost gone out of the system. And you do this. So age-structured models are actually things like this. This paper I did for cod fisheries in the Barents Sea. It lives up to 15 years. So you have 15 age groups and you just run them through and try to understand what happens. Yeah, so this is equations of what you just saw. So put your equation, you explain with words, illustrate with figures, bingo, right? At least you capture everybody because each one of us loves words, figures, and or equations, right? So at least you capture the whole population and people can choose and pick. Yeah. All right, should I explain this? So you start off with some number of fish in year 0, and that fish gives you new fish in the system. That's your recruitment. And once that fish comes in your system, it is propagated through the system using this equation. So the fish today of this age, we catch some of it, that's your harvest. And then what do you have? Some of that survives. So you have to multiply your survival by the fish that will be available next time. You can restructure this. It could be this, because of that, minus that, you know. And you do this for each age group, but the last age group is special, you know. So you have to give it special treatment. You know, human beings, we have all the average, what do we call it, life expectancy. So Japan is about what? 83. So the life expectancy is 83, but you know what? Some of them they go to 117. The oldest person in the world passed away a week or so ago in Japan. And she was 117, so 83 she just zooms past that average, right? So you need to make room here. That is why we are making room. The tough fish that go, right? So the end point treatment. Yeah. Then you have the land parameter, the multi-species. And here I put Olaf Flotten, he's a Norwegian professor. There's somebody in his institute here actually. Where is the Norwegian? Yeah, you know Ola. Do you know him? Yeah. So he did quite a nice book on this kind of models. And this one is quite a special one. I think this is a 2-species model, and one fish eats the other. So that's what it's saying. So I is fish 1 or 2. And if you take fish 1, the growth in that biomass does not only depend on the quantity of that fish in there, it also depends on the quantity of the other fish that is or that it is. So that's the equation there. And you just do that. And this one is one of the initial modeling of this kind of thing, what they call the mass action equation. Right? So if this is the one being eaten, so this would have been the normal growth rate, but then you take away the fact that species 2 is species 1. See? And the more of this and the more of this is, the more eating there will be. That's a mass action. And people have improved this because life is not that simple, right? So that's an example of. Then you have the thing, and if you spend time here, different equations here, and I put you there because of Atlantis actually, which is a similar model, right? As ecosystem where you look at the whole ecosystem, all the ins and outs, different trophic fish, and then you try to build climate change in this and oh man, so biology is not that simple as I said. Huh? It's just a simplification. And here again you have the key ecological people here, and we apply this. We apply this to do a number of things. All right, so that is my first half of that lecture. I hope time is. I try to do it within my 45 minutes. So that is the first part. Very simply, remember the Gordon-Schaefer model and all different models and the objectives and how you set them up. And I've given you examples of papers where you can actually see how this is done, please. Those of you interested, my hope is, how many? We have up to 50 people here, right? What's the number?
48.
48. So if 10% of you end up being economists, I'll be happy, okay? Yes, okay, I go down to 5%, okay. All right, so now, and what I did is a single person model actually. So a single species, you have a government or an owner or whatever managing it. But life is not like that. I just told you they are kind of shared stock. So I talk about game theory, which is one of the applications we use from mathematics to analyze fish that are not owned by one person or one entity. So it's a multi-person bioeconomic model. So what is a game? What is a game? I have a few quotations just to help you. You had a real life experience with the game yesterday, thanks to Ingrid. That was a game, right? So a game is any activity involving two or more individuals, each of whom recognizes that the outcome for himself depends not only on his own actions, but also of those of others. So yesterday when we distributed, I was wondering how many of you would have played the way you played if I had given this lecture before. So because you are in the game, the first thing you should have done yesterday is say, hey, how many players are in the game? Did any of you think about that before you started playing the first one? There were 12 players. There were 12 of you playing against each other. So you got to get that because you are strategic, you are a thinking person. You know that, okay, I'm in with him, I can decide what I do, but I don't decide what he does. So how will that play? Well, that is, this is a quote from Ken Binmore, one of the leading game theorists. Again, it's a description of strategic interaction. All right? Strategic interaction. How many of you were strategic? Maybe Juliano, where is he? Yeah. Some of you went into the game. You probably thought, of course, of the game, and then you decided your strategy. And some of you wanted to be nice and kind, which is beautiful, right? And then some of you were cutthroat, right? and so, but the key thing about game theory is why I like it is it just alerts you to what is out there. You are free to choose what you want to do with your opportunities, right? But know that there are consequences. I'm not the only one in the game. And that's, so strategy, that includes the constraints on the actions that players can take. You cannot just do anything. Yesterday you had rules of the game. Somebody asked a question and Ingrid said, no, you don't have, I won't give you that information, not yet. It's not part of the initial rule of the game, so you need that. Now, but what is game theory? It's multi-person decision theory or the analysis of conflicts and rivalry. When game theory started, it started with the US military actually, thinking war games. So everything was about conflict, about rivalry. That was where we got this big idea of zero-sum game. Everything is a zero-sum game, right? If I win, you lose. If you lose, I win. And so I think this was unfortunate actually because it helped to set up the world as we have now. There's a trade. I just bash you with the 25% tariff. As if you just lie down and sleep. No, they will react, right? And this is the thing. So you got to think before you take action. Huh?
They just did this morning.
They just did this morning. Oh, yeah, yeah. And then you have people on both sides. The Canadians are complaining, the Americans are complaining. and the politicians are still floating. Okay. Yeah. So it's a mathematical tool for analyzing strategic interactions between and among individuals. And this can be persons, firms, stakeholders, nations. So like the scope of the thing can be either you and me or this class. We're playing a game here since we came here. Did you realize that? We're all playing games here, huh? Who wasn't playing games since you came here? Nobody was playing a game, my gosh. Yeah, okay. You don't need to know that you're playing a game. That's the funny thing about this, right? You may still be in it. So, John Nash, I put him there. He's the most famous game theorist. Very interesting story. How many of you have seen the Beautiful Mind, the movie? Yeah, it's quite a story of a human story. And you know how he ended up, right? In an accident, taxi accident, he and his wife, after they went through all this ups and downs. This is a guy who came to Princeton, and Princeton had to sit up. There's an article they say John Nash came to Princeton. Revolutionized game theory, you see. Oh gosh. Won a Nobel Prize for only 3 or so papers. So if you want to think about quality publication, he's the #1. You don't need 200 publications, right? If you are able to hit that 1 or 2 or 3, you might win a Nobel Prize. But I prefer to go quantities. Maybe one of them will shine. How do you know? How do you know? I don't know what my paper will do. People decide. Yeah. You decide, my peers and those who use it. So. Yeah. So when we say strategic interaction, this is what is in our mind. Consider a situation where a few firms dominate the market. And this is more common than you think. That paper from the Resilience Center in Stockholm. How many companies? About 10. That's it. It's almost everywhere. In Canada, 6 banks. That's it. It's over. There are little credit banks, but they don't really matter, right? So this is so you have dominance a lot. Or a few group of individuals. I'm doing that because that can be person to person or nation. Have fishing rights to a fish stock, right? So if you share a stock, and there are many countries where this is. After this, my next trip is going to be in Qingdao, and we're doing modeling of the East China Sea, where there are 4 countries fishing there, right? So we have 4 different agents, like Japan does, China does, Korea, and which is the 4th one? I don't remember.
Philippines.
Okay, there you go. So that is also very common. Salmon, Canada, US. The tons of this all over. In the Barents Sea, in Namibia, Angola, and South Africa. Yeah. So all countries have to make an agreement on environmental policy, like climate change, right? Then each individual, each entity has to consider the other's reactions and expectations with respect to your own decision. You're dealing with people. You don't say, I take action and then they don't react. No, even physics knows this. Action and reaction is what? Action and reaction is, you don't know the finishing line of this. Action and reaction is equal and opposite. You haven't said that. I learned that in physics, Action and reaction, when you push this thing here, I push it there, there is some opposite friction. So there's action and reaction are equal and opposite.
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Thank you. There you go. Yes, it's just a kind of.
50 years ago.
Yeah, you know. Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, so are we age mates or what? Yeah, okay. So that's the thing. So in game theory, you really have to be aware of this. And once you're aware, you decide. And I have no problem with people deciding what they do with their own opportunities or challenges. But I want you to be aware at least, because otherwise you're vulnerable to so many things. Huh? And that's why. So describing a game. When you set up a game, these are elements of every game you see. You find these elements. You have to know the players. Who are the players? Who are the agents? Sometimes the literature will say agents. what constraints, what actions, what strategies are available to you. You cannot do anything, you know. That's usually rules of the game. So like fish, I like saying this because when there's no fish, there's no fishery, right? I mean, I don't know whether that's true. Some social scientists tell me it's not true. So there can be a fishery when there's no fish. I'm yet to really be convinced, you know. So there are constraints and actions you can take and you cannot. Information set, this is crucial. You have to make a decision. You don't have the luxury of saying, I want full information before I can take action. And this little thing I learned in economics has really informed my research. I don't wait for full information. I do the best I can with the information I have. Otherwise, you're a consultant. You are not a researcher, really. Because in research, there's always unknowns, there's uncertainties and so on. So you have to know what information set do you have. And then, remember, at the end of the game, there will be some outcomes and solutions. Yesterday, each of the groups had some dollars left in their pockets at the end of the game. That's the outcome. And that is also payoff, right? You all had outcomes, but only 2 got payoffs. You went home with nothing, the rest of you, $0. Did they share the money with you, by the way? No, you don't need to answer that. Yeah, so there will be some outcome. However you play, there will be an outcome. You may not like it or like it. And if you don't like it, it's probably too late. The game is over, right? So, but know that. So, now, key assumptions of game theory. And this connects to Ingrid, your talk yesterday. And so in traditional game theory, which is the mainstream game theory, the assumption is that each decision maker is rational in the sense that she is aware of his alternatives. You see how neutral I want to be. I really want this gender balance. I'm not joking, you know. It's inside me. So she is aware of his alternatives. I have both of them in there in one sentence. Isn't that cool? Yes. You have to be aware of your alternatives. Otherwise, you're operating in the blind, right? Which is not good, really. You become more vulnerable. And I really hit on this. So, I thought you were raising your hand. Okay. Yeah. I see everywhere, okay? So, and that a player forms expectations about the things you don't know. Again, this goes to my way of doing research. In our center, for some of us, a student, you don't come to me and say, oh, I can't do this because there's no data. I say, no way. No data is not acceptable. And this can be misunderstood as I just want to do anything. But frankly, no data is not. You tell me there's no data. There's a village, there's no data. But we all know that they all eat fish from their waters. How can you tell me there's no data? Find a way to estimate it. And that would be better than putting 0 in there. Huh? Because they eat fish, you know. So, and that is in hardcore economics. Because I don't know, I don't just stay in bed and go to sleep. I make expectations of the unknown and put it there, knowing very well that I'm almost sure going to be wrong, right? But it's better than lying in your bed for all the time. If we fear uncertainty, we can't do anything, really. You have to know, be aware, embrace it, prepare yourself. That's it. And you have to have clear preferences. You have to know what you want, otherwise you can't play this game. Oh, maybe I like dollars, maybe I want jobs. No, you got to decide. You got to decide. And at the end of the day, we all decide something, whether willingly or because you have to, right? So that's it. And chooses her actions deliberately after some process of optimization. And actually, this optimization kills us like something. I'm not saying you calculate everything using a high-powered computer. What I'm saying is you think about it, you deliberate, and then you come to a decision. That was what I meant by we are all modelists in this room. We all do this every day. You model something before you buy something. You model something before you decided to come here, right? Or you didn't. You just came? No, come on. I mean, you thought about this. So that's what it's meant. So it's optimization in a very easy human way, because any decision you make, there should be some thinking behind it. Otherwise, you're either out of your mind, and that is possible. Okay. Now, these things are controversial. Sometimes we seem not to be rational. I like to say so. I argue about this all the time. Some people say, "Oh, I'm not rational." Are you really? Is that why you're telling me? You will know that this is fire and you walk into it. If you don't know it's fire and you walk into it, fine. I mean, so that is lack of information. It's not because you are irrational that you just walk into fire. So I know this is controversial, but that is my take on this. A lot of the things we say are true. You don't have the information, you can make mistakes. Or if you are drunk, of course, you're going to overspeed. At that time, you think that is in your interest. Yeah, you think so. It's stupid, but that's what you think. So this thing is crazy. I know, I try to be brutal with this. And because I'm not here to say things people just want to hear, right? That's why we're all here. This is our business. So, but then there is evolutionary game theory which softens this. They don't start assuming people are rational. We make mistakes. We are abundantly rational and so on. And so you are limited by your opportunities. That is a big point. And so this can be modified by factors like that. There are many types of games, cooperative, non-cooperative games. You work together or you don't. And that has consequences. Zero-sum game, I've already told you, what I lose is what you gain and vice versa. There are some games like that. Yeah. One-shot games, where you just meet once and you do it and you never meet again. And you have repeated games like this class. We're going to see each other for 7-8 days. Huh? So you come the first day, you don't start misbehaving because I'll see you again tomorrow. Huh? But if you're not going to see again, that can change the way you behave, right? So then you have started games, no time and dynamic. There are many forms of games. And the most popular one is actually the prisoner's dilemma game, which I haven't listed here, which was part of the game they played yesterday, right? Or is it the one we are playing, you played today, right? With the class? Yeah, you see how it goes. Okay. Prisoner's Dilemma is a nice story. Go read about it. I don't think I have time. I'm always conscious of time, Yeah, but read about it if you haven't, because it's the most popular game. Two prisoners end up in jail when they could have walked away because they didn't trust each other. There's no communication. The police arrested two people. They have some evidence they did something criminal, but not enough evidence to get them nailed down in a jail. So they took them to different rules. So if you tell us the truth and the other person lies, you go home. The person stays in jail and vice versa. You know what they did? They all told on each other and ended up in jail, right? So that because they don't know what the other would do.
Isn't that a one-shot game?
Yeah, it is. If it is repeated, or if you are allowed to talk, it might lead to something. Yeah, absolutely. So non-cooperative, some elements of it, when there is no line of communication, right, then you have, I don't know why you don't know, there's no agreement, no binding agreement. Everybody goes and they do what they like, and then we all end up in not a good place. John Nash became famous for proving this mathematically. As far as I remember, his PhD thesis was 9 pages, okay? 9 pages. And he had it before he registered as a student. So he comes to his professor, Mr. Shubik. He comes and says, after registering, like you come to university, a month later you walk to your prof and say, you know what, before I came I was playing around with this, what do you think? And the prof's eyes are, this is what all game theorists in the world have been trying to prove all this time. Yeah, so that's the kind of person, gosh. Anyway, usually undesirable outcomes come out of this, like your game yesterday. You left a lot of money on the table. You could have made Lisa broke if you wanted to.
They did.
They did still. Oh my gosh, you would have been broke. Cooperative game is very nice if you can do it. You get to a better place for everybody. There will be more to share and so on. It's desirable but difficult to do. You need communication, it needs effort, it needs give and take, and that is the problem we have with natural resources and so on. And there are more details about this. Again, this is just to hit you with new concepts, ideas, if you haven't heard about them. Hopefully a few of you, your interest will be piqued and you can read quite a lot here. And game theory is applied across the board by politicians, lawyers, by philosophers, economists. It's quite, so it's interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. You should find any one of you. And there are concepts like Pareto, optimality, and individual rationality that underpin this. So what is Pareto optimality? It's a situation where if me and you are playing a game, we get to a state or an equilibrium point where you cannot increase my benefit without reducing the other player's benefit. So you are really tight on the boundary. There's no free benefit line on the table. And that is Pareto optimality. And you need that to be satisfied for this cooperation to work. Individual rationality is that since you don't have power over the players, it's not a dictatorship. People are free to do what they want. In general, for this cooperation to work, it has to be individually rational, which means you should get at least what you will get without cooperating. Otherwise, you walk away. Remember, you're a strategic economist, right? So that is that. And this is one way to express this. So you have two. You can think of this as two countries. You have player 2 and player 1. And this is the value player 1 gets and the value the player 2. So I'm using value, benefit, profit. I want it to be general. So you choose what you want to maximize, right? Or you want to improve. Now, usually if you behave non-cooperatively, you end up within this. You are never on this point. Because that's the Pareto optimal curve. Anywhere on this curve gives you the best you can get as a team, right? But here you are leaving something on the table. You get this, you get that. If you push and cooperate, you can get this, and you can get that. So that's the gap. That's the gain from cooperating and for this player, and that's the gain. And so anywhere here you do better than everyone for himself or herself. Right? So the nice thing is in fisheries and environmental economics, usually the total payoff when you work together is bigger than the total payoff when you don't. Right? So the question is, why do we end up here most of the time? Because we're just tough. Sometimes you believe, I just do my own thing, right? And so you end up there. Now, once you achieve this, you need to share the surplus, the gain from cooperation. And here there are a number of alternative solutions. John Nash actually proposed that, and that to me, that was where I knew he was a bit of a socialist, actually. Yeah. What he said is that you sum, you get the difference, the total benefit when you cooperate, and then take out when you don't cooperate, because that's your threat point. We call that threat point. Why is this guy? Juliano, that's your thesis I'm talking about here, actually. It's applying this to climate change and what happens to all these equations. So you divide, so this is the surplus, the gain from, and John Nash says that because the parties work together to achieve that, you should share it equally, you know? So it's kind of a fair-minded guy. A real crazy economist will say, no, you share it according to your bargaining power. So if under non-cooperation you get more than you, then that should be used to weight the sharing. It's really tying into your power. And there are many ways of sharing this, but there will be some surplus. Now, the last part of the lecture, so breathe and then we'll have more fun here. So now I'm kind of, many of us argue that game theory is a useful way of analyzing the environment because of all these factors. Because usually the environment is a common pool, right? The air in this room we all share, whether you like it or not. When you're in this room, you share it. It's a common pool, right? So that's the kind of situation where game theory really works, because then we can work together and say nobody smokes in this room, right? You know, and game theory can help you work that out. So common pool is the key reason why game theory is so applicable. And also there are multiple players. It's not usually one person who owns the atmosphere or the water or the fish. And each stakeholder has an interest in the use of the resource. If you have a joint resource where all the players have some interest, no matter what that is you want. And not only do you have it, in general you want to enhance that interest. Is that okay? Is there anyone who argues with this? That in a situation of joint ownership of something or joint right, each party has some interest because it's a valuable thing, right? And each party, except you are irrational, you want to improve your situation. Is that acceptable? I want some argument, guys.
Are we talking only in terms of instrumental value?
No. It's broad, actually. All this I'm saying is broad. Whatever you care about. Yeah. No, I'm not the dollar person. We have different interests, and that should be in there.
Well, if use is included in just like the intrinsic value of the resource,
Yeah.
then I don't think well, then you'd want to maximize it.
You want
I think
to
most stakeholders don't think about, they don't derive benefit from the intrinsic.
They do.
resource. You think so?
Oh, they do. I'm happy to know that the whales are not being slaughtered. Oh my gosh. I enjoy it. You know, it's not direct use, but that's why we fight for them. You really care. You're fighting for them. I know there's this intrinsic value and instrumental value. They go. The thing is, people actually assign both values.
Yeah.
Right or wrong? Some of us say, hey, the whales have value in themselves. Otherwise, the whales don't talk, you see. Yeah, so, anyway, this is, maybe I'm overdoing this here. Is this okay? Yes, I know, time. Have I used 45 minutes? Really? No, I don't think so. Anyway. Yeah, I'll wrap up because I have an extra for you, so let's go. All right, so a simple example here, a simple game, and you won't be able to do the exercise in my normal class. I'll just show you. So let's say you assume two countries are trying to reach an agreement about whether to ratify the Kyoto Protocol or not. And now you can change this into the Paris Agreement, right? Yeah. Two countries, and you can define these countries anyhow you like. Developing country, China versus the rest of the world, US versus the rest of the world, however you want. You define the players. And then each country can either emit at current levels as high emissions, you remember the RCEs, or at a reduced level, say the Paris Agreement 2 degree thing. So, and then you start to look at it. So this is a simple game that was set up. So country B can either low emission or high emission, country A can do the same. So these are the strategies you can take. Make a decision. Where do you think they will settle here? Anybody who knows this? Where will they settle? Remember, the numbers are the payoff you take home. And whatever that is, I just put numbers to make it. So country A, if they end up here, country A will go home with 4 units of benefit. Country B will go with 8 units. If they end up here, country A will go home with 1 unit, country B with 4. If they end up here, they all go home. Actually, you take money. Before they can go home, they have to pay. You lose your benefit. And 2-1 for the players. The question is, where do you think they will settle? These are strategic players that are not cooperative. Where will they settle? We don't have time, I just tell you. So, they will settle here. Why? Because if player B decides to go low, what will a rational player A do? She will check and see, if I go low, how much will I get? I'll get 4 and 1. So 4 is better than 1. If player B goes low, player A will also go low, right? How about if player A decides to go low, then player B will say, okay, he's already here, so what will I do? I compare 8 and 4, and 8 is better, so I'll do that. So no matter what strategy they take, they will continue to choose this, which is a beautiful place to go. Everybody gets the best they can get. You go home happier, huh? But the reason this is possible is because I'm just showing you the benefit they will get. I didn't include the cost, ha ha ha. The cost of reducing all the jobs that may have to be given up and so on. Now, when you put in an agreement to cut emissions will be reached because cost of reducing emission is zero. So, if there were no costs, we'll all accept the Paris Agreement, huh? Isn't it? But there are costs. So here we go. Now, there's control costs. To really go from high emission to low emission, you have to pay something. And country A pays $3, country B pays $6 per year in order to clean up, to move from high to low. Now, what do you do with this? You take this number and you modify the previous payoff table that I showed you. So you subtract, remember, if you still remember, this was 4.8, right? So for them to go low, we have to take out $3 from 4. So your net is now 2, and then here was 8, right? So you subtract 6 and you get 2. So that's how this is adjusted. If they all go high, there's no cost. They keep that. So you adjust the previous table to that. And the question is, what will they do now? What do you think they'll do now? Now there's a cost. And an agreement to cut emissions is not reached. Now they don't reach an agreement because it's costly to do it. So we go into the Kyoto situation where Kyoto never took off, right? All sorts of reasons. Now let's complicate this a little bit. So here, one of the countries discovers a technology that allows it to actually reduce the cost of control. Think of Denmark. They have a superhighway for bicycles, right? You can go to work on the superhighway. Even the friction, they calculated it. So you don't use a lot of energy to go to work. And people use it. Then you go to New York, my God. You have to use the damn car, right? So then the Danish have found a way to reduce their cost from 3 to 1, and the high cost country is still at 6 per year. Now, what will happen? What will happen, do you think? You think there will be an agreement to reduce or not? This is very, very frustrating. Still, there's no agreement, actually. There's no agreement, and in fact, they end up in a situation where the country that has found the innovation goes somewhat less than the country that didn't do anything. So then in the discussion of what to do, this connects to yesterday, the norms and so on. So here, there are many ways that the country that has the technology, you can think of this as developing country also. Then how do you get movement? How do you get improvement? You can use moral suasion, you can use shaming, norms and so on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. If you have a prime minister who has no shame, it doesn't work. Shaming the name, I lie, oh, I just lie some more. I'm quoting Obama actually. Did you see him in Cape Town? He said, politicians lie. He agreed that because he also did, right? He said, but there was a time when you lie and they catch you, say, oh man, they got me. But now they just lie some more. So what? Shame will not work for that one, no. So it works in some places, name and shame. And then there is this thing about allow country B to adopt different targets. And this is what Paris did. Developing countries say, look here, we don't have the technology. In fact, we haven't pumped CO2 as much per capita. Then you give us some leeway. And the world actually came up with things to do that, financial incentives. Sometimes you get threatened actually. You do it or we knock you out. If you're a big country, you can do that. Small countries don't have that option. And then some technology transfer, of course. Well, that's what I have. Hey, I'm here now. Thank you for attention. Yeah.